Today we are going to finish up the drawing for our nightstand SketchUp that we're going to assemble at home. And there's going to be a couple steps that we're doing here, especially if we have to assemble these at home and we don't have the tools at our shop available to us. And those are going to be putting some pilot holes through our project. So we've got guide holes for our nails. So we are going to take a side, and I like to always double check that everything is indeed a component, and I do that quickly just by checking and clicking one time on all of my parts and making sure that just that part is highlighted. If you've drawn a part that is not a component, you're going to have to erase things until you get to just the components and then start redrawing it. And that can be kind of a frustrating process that I'm happy to help with if that happens to you. Also remember, if this video is made during the time where we're distance learning, if you're really frustrated with this project, that's okay. That makes you kind of a normal human being. Download the file, send it to me, and I'd be happy to look at it, maybe fix some simple things that need to get fixed, and we can do Zoom calls. I could even arrange for you to come into school. So whenever you're watching this, if you get real frustrated, remember, I'm here. And I'm a phone call, an email, a Zoom call away, and we can help walk through this. And at very least, if you just download it, remember you can download it by clicking here and say download. You can download it and email me the file, and I can look at it and maybe patch up a few things that have been frustrating for you. I want to help you through this, even though I can't physically be with you right now. So what I'd like to do is draw a couple pilot holes for nails to go through, in case we have to be able to put brad nails through the side. If we're building this in class, we can use our nail guns to do it, but I'm not making the assumption that you've got nail guns at home. So I want everybody to do this, whether or not you've got nail guns at home. It's a part of the grade for this project. So to do this, I think it's easiest to make a clone of a side and work on that, and then we just erase it when we're done. Because remember, our sides are components, that one is a copy of the other. So if I pull out another copy, whatever I do to that will automatically update on the pieces that I've drawn already. So to do that, we click this Move tool. And remember also, if I click Control, I get that little plus. And now when I click the side, it pops out a new side for me. Okay? So now I am going to edit this piece, and it's going to automatically update to those pieces. So I'm going to usually have to triple click on this to get this editing, and I am going to, inside my dados, I'm going to put a pilot hole here and here so that I don't have to guess where I put my nails. To do that, I'm going to get this tape measure tool, and sometimes I can get this to snap. It's important that I grab the inside of the dado, not the outside of the dado, and I'm just going to go and see how that snaps to the midpoint. So now I've got a line right down the middle, and I don't like that this is selected, so I'm just going to click outside of here. There we go. I just didn't like that it was all highlighted blue. For whatever reason, it was bothering me. But if it doesn't bother you, that's okay. And then I'm going to also draw another line in, and we'll just say 2 inches or so. And I think I've got a problem that I drew the line in the wrong spot. So let's try this again. 2 inches. If you're having trouble with the guidelines, you can just draw regular lines and erase them when you're done. Sometimes the guidelines are funny, where they snap, where you can see them. So I'm going in 2 inches there. And you'll notice that up top, those lines are also there. So I got my 2-inch lines in there. I can also just snap this to the center. So now I've got a spot where those are where our 2 nails are going to go. And our nails are small. So I think we're going to drill an 1/8 inch hole. So to do an 1/8 inch hole, I'm going to come up here and hover over the rectangle, get to my circle button, and I'm going to zoom in and so I make sure that that circle snaps to the intersection. And then you'll notice in the bottom right hand corner of your screen it says radius 1/4 of an inch. I want to do a radius of a 1/16 of an inch so that my diameter is 1/8 of an inch. And that's a little tiny hole, but that's okay. Same thing here. Whoop. Radius of 1/8 of an inch. I did the radius wrong. So I just hit Control Z, or you can hit the undo button here. 1/16. You can also type in the decimal if you prefer at 0.0625. I'm just moving down here, and I'm going to repeat that on these. 1/16, not 0/16, 1/16. And then the last step I got to do is I got to cut these out. So I've got a dado. This is 1/4 of an inch. That leaves a 1/2 inch left over. So if I push this in 0.5, I should be able to see all the way through. There we go. Sometimes it's easy if you zoom way in. That cuts it through, and then I'm going to zoom out and climb back up to the top. And now we should see that I've got holes coming all the way through, which is great. I'm just going to deselect this, click outside of it, and then go and double check that, yep, indeed I've got those holes coming all the way through. So those holes are just serving as guidelines for my for nails that we're going to use to put this together. Now I've noticed that I forgot that we had just stringers up here. So I want to move these. And this is a good example of how to undo something that you did that you want to undo. With these holes, I think the path of least resistance here is going to be just undoing the push-pull until these holes are not pushed through. So I'm going to look on this side so I can see all 4 holes and hit Control Z. And I just undid those 2 holes on the top. So those 2 holes still exist on the bottom. And I'm going to come up here and grab my eraser tool and erase this and erase this. I can even get rid of this line because I've already got those holes drawn at the bottom. And now I need to figure out where I want to put the holes on the top, because those holes, this one is 2 inches. This is a piece that's 2 inches wide. So maybe I'll go 1 inch in here. I'll go 1 inch in from both places instead of 2. So here I grab this, maybe pan a little bit so I can see better. Zoom in 1 inch, and then I'll also go 1 inch in from the dado. Drew that line in the wrong spot. There we go, 1 inch. There's lots of ways to do drawings here on SketchUp, and I think I like drawing the pieces all together so I can catch little mistakes. Like the one that I made there would have been kind of a bummer if I would have cut my whole project out that way, because I would have missed those stringers or just clipped the very edge of them. And then I'm just going to recut these holes with the push-pull button. Remember, they're a 1/2 inch deep. And now I can look and see that, yep, those are centered on those top stringers, and I think that's going to make a stronger cabinet in the long run by doing that. So I am done with this, so I can just draw a line around it. Oops. And then just hit delete, and all that is gone. And I like to get rid of these guidelines. I think they're kind of in the way, so I can either draw a box around them. Oops. I don't want to draw a box around any of my parts, but you can see those are now tied to the components. So I should have erased them ahead of time before I erase that side. So all that I need to do is I'm going to highlight all of this, or just double click on each one of these, and I can erase them. So I've got to figure out which components they're attached to, highlight those selected components so I'm editing them, and then I can get rid of those lines. So I should have done that before I got rid of it, but anyhow, we're good. So we've got our holes on the sides. Those are all ready to rock and roll now. Now I would like to draw an adjustable shelf in here. So an adjustable shelf is sit on shelf pins that go into these holes. So those shelf pins, we're just going to have one adjustable shelf, but I don't want the shelf to be super tight, because if that shelf is really, really tight, it's going to scratch up the inside of my cabinet as I move it. So what I'm going to do is measure this opening, and I see that I am at 1 foot 1.5. Whoops, moving the dimension line there. So I like to leave myself at least a 1/16 of an inch on each side. So I see that I'm 1 foot 1.5 inches, or 13.5 inches wide, and I'm 10 5/8 inches deep. So an easy way to do this is you can just take a guideline here. Let's go back to guidelines. And I can, remember, these are all components now. So I can just go like this, draw in a line a 1/16 of an inch here, a 1/16 of an inch here, and then I can do the same thing front to back, 1/16 there, and a 1/16 there, and then I can just draw a new rectangle on top of all this. So I want to make sure I get this in the right place, that my rectangle is starting at those intersections, not the intersection of my back and side. And if you see that my line it's not wanting to connect there, I don't know if you could see this guideline got drawn up instead of in. So I'm just going to hit escape to leave the rectangle command. And you see that that line got drawn in the wrong spot, and that's normal. So if you ever have a line that's really not wanting to connect, it usually has to do with I just got click happy and drew my guideline in the wrong place. So let's try it again. I'm going to start from this front corner. There you go. See how it snaps right to that intersection? And then I'm going to come back to this opposite corner. You got to zoom in pretty close to make sure you're snapping the right place. Then my adjustable shelf is going to be 3/4 of an inch thick. So I'm just going to pull it up, 0.75. And then I like to move it more towards the center of the opening. That just gives me, whoops, that gives me a little bit more leeway. But before, I didn't make it a component before I tried to move it. So I'm going to click on it so it's all selected, make component, call it adjustable shelf, say OK. Now I can move that adjustable shelf just up a little bit higher. It really doesn't matter where it gets drawn, because you'll have the freedom to move it wherever you want. But I think if I move it up, sometimes the move tool is a little funky. I think it gives me a little better visual of what this is going to look like. And then we can erase these guidelines. But we have to have the part selected. I don't know what part I got those guidelines attached to. Maybe I don't have them attached to any. Yeah, I was able to just window around them and get rid of them. Last thing we got to build is a top. So to build my top, I'm going to get back to the top of my cabinet. And I like my top to have an inch overhang in all directions except for the back. The back. It doesn't need to overhang the back. So I'm going to use my guidelines here. Snap it out an inch. I'm going to go from the very back of the cabinet. Snap it back an inch. Just kidding. We don't want overhang in the back. So I hit Control Z. We just want to double click there so it lines up flush with the back. Once in a while you get the tape measure doing funny things like this. I just hit escape and move out a little bit. Sometimes that happens if we click on the line in the midpoint. And then I'm going to draw one more guideline going out the front. And since there's going to be a face frame on this cabinet, we're going to go 1.5 inches from the front. Or even better, we know that there's going to be a face frame on the front of this, so I need to go out 1 3/4 inches, because it'll look funny if I put my face frame on and I don't have the inch overhang in the front. So that 1 3/4 is accounting for 3/4 thickness of the front. I've got an extra line in here, it looks like. I'm going to get rid of that. Now I can just draw a rectangle and then pull that rectangle up 3/4 inches. And before I forget to do it, I'm going to erase these guidelines and then make my top a component. Now I am done with my project. I can see I've got a back on it, I've got a top on it, I've got these dimensions, and for right now I'm just going to get rid of the dimensions. The only thing I don't have drawn in here is a face frame, because that's not going to get cut out on the CNC router. But that's why we've got the kind of the goofy looking front overhang, is because the face frame is not in there. So our next video is going to be about how we can lay this out and make it look like a professional set of plans.